where now is the historic center of Mastlin. In the 19th century, this part of the city was never one of the most desirable areas to live in, due to the floods. Every time the tide rose, whether by Olas Altus or Playa Sur, the water filled the basin in the center of everything, the orange orchard, where the exchange bank was located. This is verified, with the old houses that are preserved, with their high sidewalks. On both of them, between the streets of Romanita de la Peña and Libertad, we find two good examples of what was called cuartería in the 19th century, which were small dwelling houses, whose front was made up of the door and one or two windows. The four that still remain facing east belonged to Luis Canobio, and were obviously for rent. On the southeast corner of the confluence of this street with Libertad, we have the lateral facade of a single-story house, in an excellent state of conservation. In that place existed the baths of Libertad, and although the style of this farm appears to be after that time, it is a good example of what the residences were that belonged to people who today would be classified as upper middle class, to end of the 19th century, or beginning of the 20th. Where today is the Plazuela Machado, is the farm that we will talk about. Facing the west side of the square, and covering the entire block, is the building with which the historic center is identified. Thanks to the efforts of many people, its rescue was achieved, the main one being the Portales de Canobio.
This farm owes its name to the portals that it has in front of the plazuela, and to the surname of the family that has owned it for more than 100 years. Previously, it belonged to Juan Nepomuceno Machado, of whom it has been said for a long time that the house was his at one time. In 1842, a Japanese coastal merchant ship was dismasted by a hurricane when he was on her normal trade route with different Japanese ports. The force of the wind took the ship out of its path and drifted for quite some time, until the crew was rescued by a Spanish ship that took them to Los Cabos. After various incidents, both there and in La Paz, several of them were able to come to Mastlin, where Benito Machado gave them shelter and employment, supposedly in this house. After spending some time in Mastlin, some were able to return to Japan, where they told their story, but were severely reprimanded for violating Japanese law, which prohibited its nationals from having any contact with foreigners. The story of life in Mexico of one of them was reflected in drawings, which remained archived in Japan until they were discovered in the 1970s, and to verify their veracity, a Japanese historian traveled to Mastlin. From the result, a very interesting book was published, entitled Life in Mexico of 13 Japanese Shipwrecks. In a census carried out for purposes of a captaincy tax, carried out in that same year of 1842, which is preserved by the Municipal Historical Archive, it appears that there was a blacksmith shop on the Portals estate, and that Benito Machado lived in a tile house, located in the 3rd Barracks, Block 14, Dock Street, most likely Venustiano Carranza, in the company of his sons Juan Antonio, 15 years old, and Manuel, 6, and 6 servants. In the same block, there was the warehouse house of the Maritime Customs. The estate later belonged to the Yecker, Torre, and Company. In 1849, Juan Tomás bought it in the name of Tomasa Osuna, from Angel Nazabal, representative of the owner firm, for 5,000 pesos. In 1852, Tomasa Osuna bought from the municipality an extension of land that constituted a small square, located on the south side of the house, and the farm was completely rebuilt. According to files, which are kept in the municipal archives, it is known that in May 1864, Tomasa Osuna was building the second floor of his estate. The related documents contain the entire complicated process, which began with a report by the trustee Santiago Calderon, and although it is extensive, it is worth knowing about it, not only because of the importance that the famous Portales de Canobio for the historic center of Mazatlan, but also because the city council's desire to demolish part of the farm gave rise to a serious confrontation between the municipal authority and the district prefecture. A case not seen before in history of the city, in the 19th century.